Good evening, Salem. Welcome to the Family Hour. It is Sunday evening, 6 o'clock. And we're excited that you have come back to join us again for another edition. I'm Sean Marshall, one of the pastors on staff here, what we love to call the greatest church in the world, the Salem Baptist Church of Chicago. If you're new to the Family Hour, what we do every Sunday evening, 6 o'clock, is we serve our church's mission, which is to restore hope by connecting people to God and to each other. And we use this platform to give you information, insight, inspiration that we hope your family can use to continue moving forward in these strange and interesting times. We've been a year in to a global pandemic. Most of the folks I've checked with have never been through one of these before. So it's real interesting when you're in a space you've never been in before. It can feel dark. It can feel scary. So as a church family, we realize the importance of being able to encourage people, helping them to know what to think about different things that are happening around them, giving you some insight and some wisdom so that you can help your family to know, hey, it's going to be all good. We're going to be all right. So we hope that you have been blessed by all of these Family Hour episodes. I'm going to ask you all to do something that you are already doing. And we're so grateful for those of you all who are regulars already starting to do it. First of all, comment and let us know where you are watching from. So grateful for our Salem family up in Michigan and Texas and California, Georgia, New York. Thank you for letting us know where you're watching from. Of course, we thank God for our Salem family right here in the Chicagoland area. Thank you for letting us know that you're tuning in tonight, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Secondly, we want you to share this. Hit the share button, tag somebody, let them know the Family Hour is on. Call somebody up, tell them to put on YouTube on their device or on their TV screen. Third thing we want you to do is to make sure that you are engaging with us in the comments. You don't want to miss this. You want to get anybody that you know that's got a child, a young person in their home. We're going to be talking tonight with some pediatricians who are going to give us some insight and some wisdom for how we can care for our children as we navigate our way out of this pandemic. So we're so grateful that you joined us tonight. Let me pray, and then I'm excited to bring on our guests. Father, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together again on this Sunday evening. We are so grateful for this platform that you have given us, that we can continue to find hope in you and find wisdom that will help us to know what decisions to make as we move through this season of change. Thank you for our panelists. Thank you for what they will share with us tonight. Thank you in advance for their sacrifices. Thank you for the hope that will be given as we talk. We love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, I'm excited tonight because we have some medical professionals, some young adult medical professionals at that. These are some gifted, incredible minds, and I can't wait to jump into the conversation with them tonight. So make sure that you are in those comments because you're going to hear some incredible things. Get your notepads out because you're going to get some insights that are going to help you know how to take care of your kids. First of all, I want to bring on Dr. Tahira West, who is here with us tonight. Dr. West, thank you for joining us.
Hi, it's good to be here.
So glad to have you. Also want to bring on Dr. Naveen Kanji. Welcome, Dr. Kanji.
Hi.
Hey, welcome. We're so glad that you are joining us tonight. I'm also going to bring on Dr. Will Clare. Welcome, Dr. Clare.
Hello, everyone.
Greetings. And then last but not least, I want to welcome to the Family Hour, Dr. Alexis Yamas. Welcome, doctor.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
So all of these doctors work in the Advocate healthcare system. They are all pediatricians and they are all young adults. We've had an opportunity to talk to them, to get them to know them a little bit better. We've had an opportunity to hear their passion for wanting to serve kids and wanting to serve young people. And so we are excited. So if you have a child in your house who's under 18, okay, you want to make sure that you're tuning in tonight, because we're going to have all kinds of conversation for you. Listen, if you have a child, maybe you don't have a pediatrician for them yet, or maybe you have some questions. Maybe you need to figure out some things. We've got 4 incredible doctors on tonight who are going to help us get some insight. So make sure you let somebody know to tune in right now. So here's a first question, and I'm going to throw this at Dr. West, and then we'll just rotate around. So everybody's going to jump in. And what we found, you all, I know this is your first time on the Family Hour. It's not going to be your last. I'm already booking you for future shows. What we have found is that when we start the Family Hour, people go, oh my God, what am I going to talk about for an hour? And then right about 55 minutes from now, we're going to try to be figuring out how all of us are trying to shut up. That's what's going to happen, okay? So the conversation is going to get good at some point, but I'm just going to kick it off with Dr. West, okay? So first question I have for you is, so what should parents be doing like right now, okay? So we're a year into this thing. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, there's some parents who have, you know, said, well, you know, my kid had COVID, and, you know, for them, it was just like a cold. There are some parents who are trying to figure out, okay, what is this MIS-C thing, right? So there's a whole lot of stuff going on. And I think when we are afraid, we get paralyzed, right? My wife and I, we have a 3-year-old, she'll be 4 next month. And this is our first child. And so we're just sitting and we're going, oh my God, what do we do? You know, do we take her outside? You know, I have a confession to make as a preacher. When COVID hit, we were like, we're not taking you to the playground because we don't want you going down that slide and sliding off with COVID. So we lied to her and said, you know, baby, the playground is closed. All playgrounds are just closed. She was too young to understand. How you going to explain? Well, you know how there's a virus that they don't have a cure for, right? And this virus can affect your white blood cells. So we're not getting into all of that. Yeah. So just talk to parents who are crazy like us. You know, what should we be doing right now? What should we be thinking? And so I can repent and, you know, get myself right with God.
No repenting needed. Now, honestly, when it was early in the pandemic, exactly what you did, staying indoors based on like the CDC guidelines, that is what I would have told any parent to do. You know, the social distancing, the staying indoors, proper hand washing, wearing masks. All of those things that everyone is doing out of fear. I was doing the same thing. We all can probably speak and say we were doing those things. So I wouldn't say anyone who did that is wrong. Now we're a year later and things are getting better, but we still have a lot to learn with the virus, in the sense of, you know, as far as watching people who, like you said, you've had COVID, and then we've got this vaccine rolling out. So how is this going to affect us trying to get back into school? President Biden is making a lot of plans for, you know, the summer and getting back into school. So I think the biggest thing to do right now is to try to stay informed with the right resources. So what we see a lot of times when we have patients in clinic or in the hospital is Dr. Google, right? Everyone wants to Google everything, and actually knowing the good sources of information, I think, is very important. So good sources would be like the CDC website. Good sources would be actually, if you have a physician, talking to your doctor who is informed about it. And being careful of the kind of articles and information that where you're getting your sources of information from, on how we should, at what level of social distancing we should be at right now. So even as of like this past week, there's been guidelines coming out that if you've been vaccinated or you've had someone in the household who's vaccinated, then, you know, now you don't need to, you know, you can go in small gatherings and not wear mass around those people, and you can be within that 6 feet of like distance. And this varies from state to state. So that's also something as well, looking at your state websites to know what these guidelines are based on your state and your location. But I think the biggest thing is staying informed and doing what the recommendations are based on, you know, the rate of cases for your area. And then in general, until we have, you know, a good mass majority vaccinated, we should still do the distancing things of, you know, wearing our masks when we go out. And then especially if you have little kids and you live at home with grandma and grandpa, people who are higher risk, taking those precautions. And then even when it comes back to going back to school, I would say for sure, making sure that we know what the teachers in the schools, what plan the school has for distancing. You know, is it as extensive as, you know, we're wiping down desks before students are coming back in or between class changes? You know, how is, you know, a lot of this is already going on as some people are, you know, virtual or have a hybrid mix of going in and out of school, but really staying up to date on what those changes are and how specifically teachers are going about or the schools are going about having kids socially distance when they do go back to schools.
That's great. So I didn't totally lie.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. So
yes.
Okay. That's comforting to me. Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. Thank you, doctor. I appreciate that. That I can now tell my wife that I was professionally advised that I gave my daughter good instructions. Thank you so much. I want to come to you, Dr. Kanji, with a question about Dr. West touched on kids returning to school. And I want to touch on that a little bit because, you know, we're it's March, mm-hmm. and, you know, they're looking toward the fall. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that is one of the president's promises. You know, he wants to make sure that resources are allocated so that schools can open safely, so that schools can, you know, for us, and even with our daughter, right? So our daughter is in pre-K, and we're looking at schools now. She's going to have to leave her preschool and go into kindergarten real soon. So we're looking now. You know, we don't want to put it all on the school to say, you know, y'all make sure y'all gonna be safe. So what kind of things should parents be thinking about coming out of this pandemic to make sure that we're keeping our kids healthy, sending them back to school healthy, making sure that as we go into the summer, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about to make sure that we're keeping our kids healthy?
That is such a good question. So at least with this question, I think every family, every, you know, parenting household is so different. So I think that now that we've done this for a year, I think it's really important to understand kind of where you're at with your risk-taking comfortabilities. You know, how many risks are you willing to take? When do you feel safe? What makes you feel safe? Is constant masking all the time, is that what makes you feel safe? In smaller groups, do you feel safe without masks? I mean, really figure out where you're at and where your baseline is at. Because you're right, the school's only going to do so much, but we got to do our part and figure out what we can do. So I think just assess your basic risk. I think the second thing, though, is to really talk to your kids, too, and see where they're at and where their understanding is. Because I know we've been doing this for a year, but after a while, like, even they forget, and the climate's been changing a little bit. So really keep the communication open with them. Make sure that they are becoming aware of what it means to be around people who look like they might be sick? What does it look like to be around people who are coughing or who just sneezed and who didn't wash their hands or didn't use hand sanitizer or something like that? Help them be aware of those like signs and symptoms and that sort of stuff, so that when they go back to school, if that's what you're comfortable with, like in-person school totally, that they're able to come home and communicate that to you, that they don't feel nervous to say, hey mom, hey dad, I was sitting next to this boy and he coughed all over my shoulder. And it's real important that they like come back to you and tell you that. So I think communication is super important between you and your kids. And I think that's like thinking about the younger kids, but I think about your older kids too, like the teenagers who are going to want to hang out with their friends. They're going to want to go to small little parties or things like that, and really making sure that they feel safe telling you about situations that they may or may not have felt safe in terms of illness and COVID and that sort of thing. And then of course, hand washing, hand sanitizer, masks, all of that good stuff. It absolutely will not go away. I do not think that we need to, even if like fall, everything's open and everything's great, please keep doing that. School's our journey. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm so glad that you shared that. Dr. West, you have a comment.
Yeah, so I think Naveen brought up some very, very good points about on the parent side, and that education is so important for letting kids know and understand what sickness looks like. So just something I was thinking about while she was talking is the little things like having your kids, bringing multiple masks. I'm sure schools maybe provide spare masks, but bringing multiple masks to school. Like sometimes when you sneeze, if you've ever sneezed, all of us maybe have sneezed in a mask before, and it gets all wet and it just does not feel comfortable. But having more than one mask available, the proper way to sneeze, if they do, some people, sneeze in the arm, not on the hands, things like that. So there are a lot of little tips and tricks that I think are important, and definitely recognizing the signs of illness, as far as like what COVID symptoms can be very vague. And so like cough, it could be stomach pain, it could be, kids who have a runny nose, like any kind of viral symptom, people can freak out and get concerned for COVID. But I think to not only protect other kids at school, if your child is showing signs of, they're coughing a lot, they seem like they're coming down with something, just to even protect other kids, it's okay to, if they're back in school full time, then your kid seems like they're sick and needs to miss a few days just to make sure that they're okay. I think being comfortable with that as well. I know a lot of kids are seeming behind. So I know there's a lot coming out right now that parents feel like their kids aren't reaching some of their developmental milestones and things like that because of the pandemic. But I think if we're looking at the health risks as well and the accommodations once we're fully back in school for all kids, it'll be important to be okay with letting your kids stay home for a little bit and doing some homework in that sense. And kids are used to it now since they've been virtual for a year. So I think being okay with doing that is also very important.
Thank you for that. And I'm so glad that both you and Dr. Kanji, said that, because I've been saying this, I'm not a doctor, but I've just been saying this in general about the pandemic itself. I think there's such a angst for people to, I've heard this so much, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. But I don't feel like normal is coming back. I feel like, and I've said that a lot, and people don't want to hear that, but there's a lot about our world that is changed and has changed and will continue to change. There are things that we've learned about our different systems that we cannot go back to the way we were. I mean, so, for us to assume that, okay, a stimulus package has been passed, okay, now all your kids can just go back to school mask free. I mean, it's just that just doesn't make sense to me, right? So, say for instance, and we don't know. There are trials right now for kids and the COVID vaccine. We know that most adults will have the opportunity to be vaccinated by the fall. We don't know where that's going to land with kids because they're still doing the research on that. And maybe you guys can speak to that at some point, what you may know or what you may advise. But, we just don't know. And there's still a lot of things that we don't know about, and questions that people have about, like MISC-C and all this other stuff and things that you all have seen come, I'm sure, into your office. And so to just think that, okay, Johnny, you don't have to wash your hands anymore. I kind of feel like what we've learned are a lot of things we probably should have been doing all along. Don't cough on people.
Yes.
Don't spread your germs. Wash your hands.
I think the flu, the rate of the flu has declined so significantly. We've barely seen the flu this year. And it is definitely because we've been distancing, practicing good hygiene, masking up. And I feel like, we see a lot of refusals to the flu vaccine on a regular basis, but I think it does show that, with good hand washing and social distancing and good hygiene does work to reduce rates of virus transmission.
Yeah, and not going up in people's personal space that you don't know. I mean, these sound like kind of maybe basic things that we just needed a pandemic to make people maybe do. I mean, so thank you for saying that. I mean, I think that resets our expectations.
And I'd like to comment on what it's also reminded us of things that we should, like you were alluding to make normal again, like eating together as a family, slowing down the pace of our busy lifestyles and actually sitting down and having dinner with the family. I know that I appreciated that so much more during COVID when we were always home together, or having the time where going to the grocery store was a rare occasion. That was getting out of the house to go to the grocery store amongst like our busy schedules with working. But it just reminds us of how important family is and how those precious times just sitting around the table, praying together before a meal, appreciating every day for what it is and the people around us, I think is another good reminder to normalize prayer and sitting together as a family and taking that time, because it means everything.
Absolutely. That is so very good. Like, do we really want to go back to whatever normal was if that wasn't a part of our normal, right? Oh my God, I can't wait to when I don't have to be stuck up in the house with my family. I mean, so what are we saying, right? So that's a really good point. So I'm curious too, because so over the course of the pandemic, I think our daughter had to go to the doctor twice. There was one point where she did like have a cough and a sneeze, and we were like, oh my Lord, she done got the, And so we took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, no, she has cold. They still have colds. Colds still happen, And so I'm curious, what are some of the things that you all have seen over the past year? It's been a year. And, my wife is a nurse. And my wife has worked with, she's a nurse administrator, works in dialysis, and she's had 2 clinics. One of her clinics was a clinic that was specifically dedicated to patients who were on dialysis with COVID. And there were days she came home and she said, if I knew that this was coming, just based upon this whole year. I'm curious, what are some of the things, maybe some of the common things that you've seen with kids and parents over the past year? Some of the common issues that you've seen. Maybe Dr. Yamas, you can speak to this, and then maybe Dr. Claire, you can share some of the things that you've seen come through your office. maybe just to help parents know, hey, know that you're not the only one who's had these issues, or maybe done these weird things, or had these things pop up. What are some of the things that you all have seen come through your office?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of families are struggling with finding the time to kind of decompress themselves, especially if they're in a house where many individuals are working from home, or the parent struggling not only to work from home, but to also teach their children things that they can't completely understand without a teacher next to their side. And the challenge, I can't even imagine being in their place because I'm not a parent, but the struggle of having to balance work and balance teaching their child things, I believe, is a challenge many parents, maybe even siblings, had to go through and to conquer over this time. I give them so much credit for that, but know that they're not alone. I see children that are struggling, that are individuals that prefer to learn in person, and they are just struggling through technology, through the distractions of their siblings at home with their 2-year-old siblings or younger playing, and they can't focus on their history, or math was always hard for them. And now this is even worse because their mom's working, but they also have a sibling they feel obligated to kind of help take care of too, but they're also trying to be a student. So these are very, very tough times emotionally and physically, and just know that you're not alone. If you're struggling to get through that online class, reach out to your teachers. They're there to help you. Talk to your boss if you're a parent, and just, they know that the struggle is there managing that at home. And so reaching for that extra bit of help, either through work or through a teacher, through a private aid, or other educational outside school time that they can help with, I'm sure that they'd be willing to assist, but definitely not alone.
Yeah, I would basically echo exactly what Dr. Yamas was saying. We've seen so many kids that are normally, they had their struggles in school from the start, and this was not what they needed to have kind of thrown on top of that. And then kids who normally were doing great in school, this isn't the right environment for them. I mean, most of us, I don't think, had plans to turn a room in our house into a permanent classroom. And suddenly we're forced to do that. And families are making do with what they can do, but it's hard to have, everyone has different amounts of space and different living arrangements, and some people have busier homes than others. Some families have to work, and you can have one family member watching their child while they're at school, but not always is there going to be everyone in the house available to give them that support. It can be a struggle for everyone. And then I think especially I think we see it more obvious in our teenagers, but the mental health aspect of the last several months to a year has been really tough. And I really feel for them, because teenagers are built to socialize and learn and become their own person. And suddenly there are a lot of those things that they are really trying to do and benefit from and thrive from. Being cooped up in the house is hard for a teenager. And so seeing more depression, seeing more anxiety, and all these things kind of pop up, I think has been a struggle for families who are used to seeing their kids as being, normally very happy, thriving individuals with a social life. But on the other side, we've had our different therapists and counselors have been able to shift over to doing a lot of virtual sessions, which I think that if you do notice any of your kids having trouble with kind of, they're seeming more down, they're not interested in the kind of things they were normally doing, there's a lot more virtual opportunities. So if you're not in a place where, we can't get over to a session to have therapy once a week, but I think most people are going to have an easier time doing a phone call or a video visit with a lot of these people. and I think that a lot of our younger folks have been benefiting from that. Similarly, on kind of the school fronts, in terms of our school, I think that there's been a lot of families where, we're coming into the kindergarten era, or we're our kids about to go to kindergarten, about to start school, and we've had almost a whole year where maybe families are worried that, are we ready to start school? Poor families are coming to their doctor after a long time and realizing that their children aren't speaking as many words as they would normally be expected to, or not handling little things with their hands and having that coordination that they would normally do. So having our physical therapists and speech therapists involved with a lot of these families has been, I think, a big help, but it's been rough when things aren't going kind of at the pace that you would expect, I think.
I wanted to jump in and talk really quick about something that comes up a lot. I like to ask at all of my well child visits, whether they're like younger kids or older kids, but about sleep. And I think that it's been hard. Everybody's been like, COVID. All right, I got you. I know, COVID. And so it's really hard because all you're going to do is just stay at home anyways. And so I know that can be really difficult. And so I really want to empower parents to know that they can take that control back into their hands. I know COVID has been so hard on kids, and we want to make sure that, we're supporting our kids to take back that control. Know that we're going to, head back into school at some point, but take back that control and say, all right, bedtime means bedtime. Bedtime means like 8 p.m. It means 9 p.m. If we're spending so much time in front of a screen, please, please, please make sure that you're, getting some off-screen time, like an hour before going to sleep, so that you can really get some of that blue light away. I think sleep hygiene has been so difficult for so many families, but it is going to be increasingly more important, because I think that as kids move from their life at home, like e-learning, into like in-person learning, I think that they are going to struggle. And that's normal. I think struggling when you're changing your routine is so normal. I mean, every time like I go like month to month to different rotations, I struggle that first week. And so I imagine your kids will too. But support them through that with like sleep hygiene, but then also healthy eating too. I think that has been a huge struggle for a lot of my parents and a lot of kids, because man, when I'm tired, the last thing I want to do is eat an apple. And I get it. I hear you. I mean, I'm right there with you. But I think that you try your best, take back that control, and really, this is the time to enforce those habits. Say, hey, we're going to head back. Let's try it. Those would be my two things: healthy eating and sleep hygiene.
That's so good. Thank you, Dr. Kanji. Hey, if you're just tuning in to the Family Hour, we are talking to pediatricians, and they are giving us some excellent counsel on how we should be caring for our kids, our young people 18 and under. Make sure you are sharing, make sure you are tagging people. If you got a young person, if you want some better insight into how you can care for your kids as we emerge from this pandemic, you want to be tuning into this. You want to make sure that you are saving this so you can go back and listen to anything you may have missed and help some other folks jump on. This is really, really good conversation. So grateful for our panelists. So Dr. Kanji, on that note, and then I'm going to throw this to Dr. West, and we'll just keep talking. So you're talking about habits and rhythms. Okay. So pandemic, all that went out the window. Just all out the window. My wife was running 2 clinics, and my daughter's daycare shut down, and I still had a day job, and I still had stuff. And so all of my meetings are now on Zoom. And so my daughter is at home, and, I'm managing her, her learning. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I'm in my Zoom meetings, I'm doing my work. For the first couple of days, it was cool. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get up at this time and I'm going to set her food out and I'm going to plan her meals. And then I'm going to print out some worksheets. She's going to do some worksheets. And then I'm going to set her iPad up with some educational videos. And, she's going to do educational videos from this hour to that hour. And about the third day, I'm in my Zoom meetings and it's 9 a.m. I'm like, here, baby, here's some potato chips. And here's Peppa Pig. Go over here, stay in this corner until Daddy get done with his Zoom. And then when Daddy get done with his Zoom, we're going to put our masks on and walk around the corner. And by the time Daddy got done with his Zoom, Daddy was asleep. And baby had put Daddy to sleep. So all kind of rhythms, all kind of healthy eating. It was a good day if she got half a banana. And so now we're a year into this thing. How do we practically reset all of the stuff that just went completely south over this past year? How do we reteach our kids those healthy eating habits? How do we reintroduce structure into our home? How do we recover, not normalcy, because it's not normal, but how do we recover, I guess I want to say, the kind of order that good health requires? Does that make sense? For our kids, specifically for our kids, because we're a whole other mess altogether. I'm talking about for our kids. How do we do this for our kids?
Yes. So I'll start this one off and then I'll tag over to Dr. Claire because I think you'll be able to say a lot about this topic. But it's essentially it's a team and a family effort. So one thing that we have been seeing a lot of is significant weight gain in our youth, and childhood obesity was already something that was on the rise before the pandemic. But we've definitely seen kids, a lot of times you can see it more in I've seen a lot of teenagers that in, 3 months gaining 20 pounds, things like that. We've seen a lot of weight gain. And so a lot of it, understandably, when you're not in school, you're not moving around, you're not being mobile, and you're sitting in class on a screen all day. And then a lot of kids, even after they're done with their classes and doing the virtual schooling, they go and they're on their iPad or they're watching TV or playing video games and they're not being active. So, and then on top of that, good diet and exercise go hand in hand. And so their lack of physical activity in combination of possibly poor eating habits is just causing a ripple effect of that increased weight gain we've been seeing. So there are a lot of different things that you can do to kind of combat that. So it may be harder on the, you can't help but sit during class. And of course, I know some schools are trying to get frequent breaks, getting your child moving, trying to reduce screen time, being more involved in family-centered, exercise, even if you want to just take a walk all together, doing things like that, getting the entire family involved and making it not sound like mommy and daddy are telling you to go do to exercise, but then it feels more like a chore versus if you're making it inclusive, and then it feels more like family time. And so, especially on the eating note, one of the basic things is, I think getting kids involved in what they eat. So a lot of times we say, when you go to the grocery store, have the kid pick what vegetables you're going to buy and what's going to be cooked for dinner. Have them pick out, the healthy things that, if kids don't like vegetables, whatever. If they're a picky eater, give them options of healthy things to eat and let them pick. And then you can get them involved in the actual cooking process, whether it's stirring a bowl or making them feel like they made their meal. That can also help them eat healthier if they picked it out and they help to prepare it. And then other things are just stuff as simple as just if it's not in the house and it's of course, the cookies and the chips and, a lot of people, junk food, I love junk food. I'll eat a cookie and everything all day, but moderation is key. And so trying to either set small goals of, you can, let's make a smoothie, and you can throw some vegetables in that way and trick some spinach, whatever, and then put some fruits. And that can be one way to, trick, especially with the younger kids, like you can trick them into eating their vegetables. But I'll say that's just a few things I'll say, and I can throw it over to Dr. Claire and let him continue.
Dr. West took all my talking points away. Just what a professional. So here's the thing with food. Food is, I think, a frustration with a lot of families, especially now, but it's also in a lot of ways the solution. But what I mean by that is the things that we can change around food, number one, for healthier habits, are also going to be things that are going to make other habits better in the family. So helping out for school, helping out with just family dynamics, helping out for sleep. Let's start off with the younger kids, I guess. So our younger kids, I think a lot of the questions and issues we're seeing are picky eating and kind of like, what should I be feeding my children? And that's sort of up to the child themselves. So with limitations. So as the parent, you have the ability to buy the food, and the child has the ability to pick the food that they eat. And so with pickier kids, sometimes we'll say, try and give them a few options so they have a choice. It's not so much, let me force this, but hey, I have 2 different kinds of vegetables. Which one do you want to have? That sometimes gives the kid a little more feeling like, hey, this is my choice, it's my life, I'm going to do the thing I want, rather than just saying no. What Dr. West was saying about bringing your kids to the store and like getting them involved in the process is a big help too. So go with your kids to the store if you can, and have them look at the different vegetables that are there, or look at the different frozen vegetables. Let me just say, if you're in a situation where you can't go and get fresh vegetables, fresh fruit all the time, the frozen stuff is really good. It's usually more affordable. You can put it in your freezer and store it for a while, and that's less trips to the grocery store. But back to what I was going to is letting your kids choose the food that they're eating among the healthy choices will get you a bit further. Bringing them to the house. So the younger ones, I'm not asking you to turn your 3-year-old into a sous chef and having them chop up all the vegetables, but they can maybe wash the vegetable in the sink, let them feel like they're part of this process. That's going to make you guys bond. It's going to teach them new skills in terms of like moving things around, using their hands, kind of helping them develop as people. And it might make them less picky, because if it's something you did yourself, it tends to be something that you're more willing to do. Other things for veggies. So smoothies are a great option if you have a blender, if you have something that you can make them into like a treat or a snack for the kids. So you can do yogurt, you can do a little bit of juice in it. You can do water also, and just mix that in with frozen fruits and frozen vegetables, and it's good. It's usually really healthy, and most kids are gonna want to drink it. Some people, I think there's a fear about, especially when we're trying to focus on eating healthy, there's a fear of the dips, so the ranch dressing, that kind of thing. If that's what we're using to get vegetables in, I say go for it. If you want to give if your child's only going to eat like cucumbers or carrots with like dipped in ranch or dipped in peanut butter, go nuts. The amount in the ranch dressing is not going to make or break it, and you're teaching them to like vegetables still at the end of the day. And when they get older, maybe they'll have less of the dressing. Once you've made your meal, the other big thing and the other big habit forming is sitting down together as a family. So I think one of the big blessings that we've had from being cooped up inside is that we've had a lot more family meals in some cases. And remembering that it's nice to have some time with the family is good, and it will promote more dynamics. Just 3 meals a day, and not everyone's at home, but whoever is at home, if they can sit down with a kid, that's going to teach them a little more discipline. It's going to teach them to get on a schedule, and also they'll be usually more likely to eat, because if everyone else is eating, they might be more willing to. And on that same note of kind of eating when everyone else is, the one thing to look out for, I think, is on the snacking side. With teenage, especially with little kids, I think that they're picking up a lot more than you would think in terms of habits, in terms of snacks. If they see mom and dad having chips at home, they're going to be more inclined to eat chips at home too, or more wanting to do that. I'm certainly probably not going to eat a salad if I see a bunch of people having burgers right next to me. So it's sort of like that for them. So that's an opportunity for parents to also change some of their own habits, because it's going to be a model and an example for children too.
That was so good. I mean, Dr. Claire, you dropped some bombs for me. I mean, because I got a picky eater at home. And when you said that whole thing, if you got a picky eater, let him pick. You just don't know. I feel like you need to send me an invoice for that one, because I'm just gonna be like, okay, Sage, here, you got cucumbers or you got this. Pick one. That just, listen.
Mm-hmm.
Where are y'all at? I need to come visit y'all. Can the 4 of you all be my daughter's doctor? Can I get a group plan?
Actually, that's how it works at our clinic.
Is that really how it works? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be rolling through your clinic then. Just don't be surprised if you see this head coming through your clinic.
No, eating is so common. It's such a common thing we hear, especially in the toddler phase. And so, just letting them feel like they have control over what they're eating is all the mental mind control they need to be like, well, I picked it out, so I'm going to eat it. And it's as simple as that. And then also, just like a lot of times if they're really hungry and the food in front of them is the only option they have to eat, they will not starve themselves. They will eat what is in front of them if they're hungry enough. So also keeping that in mind, like just leave the plate there. Kids come back and forth to the plate. If they are really hungry, they will eat it, and they will eat all the vegetables on the plate, because that's the only option. They know they can't get a cookie, they can't get chips after, they can't get the ice cream. Right. No, all you can have is what's on this plate. So either you eat it or you starve, and it's just gonna be as real as that. And they will likely take the choice of not starving.
Parents, you gotta be the boss. Like, parents love letting their kids be like, "Oh, my kid doesn't eat this." Well, they'll eat it. You gotta take control. You are the boss in your family. Your little 4-year-old's not gonna control you, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I used to be that picky eater, and my pediatrician used to tell my mom, "Does she have a car? Can she drive herself to the store?" No. So
was my grandmother your pediatrician? Those are the things my grandmother would say.
Right, and I turned out just fine.
And even on the note that Will was talking about with everyone sitting at the table together, I think that's really important, especially for teenagers and our preteens when it comes to mental health and checking in on where they're at. So literally having that be the family time where you can sit and say, how are you really doing? Really using dinner, you're eating, it's a communal time. So I think that mental health for our preteens and teens is something we've been seeing a lot of anxiety, depression. They have decreased concentration just because they're sitting in front of screens all day. And it can be really hard a lot of times for parents to pick up on this, just because everyone's just separate in the house. Like there's kids and teenagers normally get their own kind of private time. Like teenagers, they do what they want for the most part, and preteens, unless you have kids in elementary school, you know, you're with them. But teenagers kind of can float in their own boat, and social media is real, and the woes and the scares and the online pressures that come with just being a teenager and growing up in a technological age. I think it's something that really parents should be more mindful of and try to pry and ask into that in the right way. So I think the right way is setting the bar. You know, sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it, and coming off in more of that, you know, hey, I'm just checking in. We cool. Let's eat some dinner. How are things going in school? Maybe start off topic, you know, and say, yeah, talk about something else, and then find your bridge into talking about, well, how do you feel about that? Or how have you been feeling? Oh, now that you mention it. Or pivot to a friend, ask how one of their friends have been doing, and then use the friend to pivot to, oh, well, she's been feeling that way. Have you been feeling that way too? Or, you know, kids may reveal some gossip and things like that. So, you know, they gossip. If they talk about something that happened at school or on class, then you can use that as a way to pivot it onto themselves and say like, oh, that happened with her. Well, have you been having thoughts? Has that happened with him? What have you been doing? What's going on in that area? And I'll let anyone else who wants to chime in on that go on and speak as well.
Yeah, mental health is such a big, important topic, especially right now, which we've alluded to. Thank you, Dr. West, and everyone else. It's just a good time to be mindful of everything going around in your family, in your home, but even in your own personal well-being. I know that, of course, we all focus a lot on body health, and a lot of that stems as well with mental health, body health, mind health, and a lot of that could begin with some mindfulness. So I can give one example to families or just individuals who are struggling with that, to recognize here's a quick, easy mindfulness activity that we like to give to patients, families, individuals that are struggling, that just need to take some time for themselves. And so it's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule of mindfulness, which I love. And so 5 things, you start off with 5 things about what are things that you see. Notice things that are around you and in your environment, becoming aware of where you are. Then you think about 4 things that you can feel. You can feel the wind next to you, or you can feel the shirt on your body, or just simple things like that. 3 things that you can hear. So listen, take the time to notice the sounds around you, the leaves, someone's breath, or anything. And then 2 things that you can smell. Are you in the kitchen and smell that wonderful cooking, or you can smell cookies or anything that are on the table. And lastly, taste. So the taste, bringing to attention all of your senses. Did you just take a sip of your favorite drink, or anything of that nature, just to kind of draw yourself to a being of taking that time for yourself, reflecting, and ultimately concentrating on your ability to see beyond your current stressors, because a lot of kids these days, unfortunately, are so focused on the social media, those test grades, things like that, and they can't see beyond that. And this gives them a few moments, as you saw, it can be very quick, a few moments to just kind of recognize that there's so much more than that stressor, and that will pass. And so kind of just mindful exercises are often really good for mental health and your focus.
That's so incredibly good. And, you know, because with everything that's going on, and let me tell you why I love that. And I know we got all kinds of people, thinking kind of people in the audience. And so the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. Even being slowed down in a pandemic, we don't know how to be still. And when you talk about mindfulness, you're not talking about anything weird. That's what you're talking about. Actually being able to slow yourself down, be still, and be present to everything that's going on in the moment, right? Being present to your 5 senses, being present to what God may be trying to say to you, being present to everything that's going on in your head, in your heart, in your mind. And that's what we're talking about. And that is so incredibly good and so incredibly practical. My goodness. Dr. Kanji, what you got to say?
No, I'm all speechless. I love it. I was becoming very mindful in this moment. My goodness. No, I think I totally agree. The mindfulness is incredibly important. Pausing. Dr. West was talking about having those conversations with our kids, and and really trying to open up and see what's going on in school, what's going on in their lives. And parents, if you guys are anything like my parents, they did not handle these touchy conversations very well. I mean, they like blew up in a second. And so when I was growing up, I was like, dang, I can't tell my parents anything because they freak out. And look, it still happens, and I don't judge you. Being a parent is hard. My goodness, I can wait until I'm a parent of a teen. So I hear you guys. It is hard. But something I like to tell you guys is teens pick up on everything. In their head, the entire world revolves around them. And that's just how it is. Teens are very egocentric because that's just how their brain is functioning, and we can't fault them. That's just where they're at. You got to meet them. But know that they're like seeing, they are noticing, they are hearing, and they are physically, emotionally picking up on everything that you're giving them. So when they tell you something that might be personal, or that they felt some type of way, or whatever, before reacting, parents pause. Breathe. Like, go everything against your instinct to freak out. Don't do it. Not saying that you do, but in your heart, when you're like, my baby did what? No. Breathe and pause. And then talk to them and just take that breath. I promise you, your teen will feel so much more open, so much less judged. I mean, they are just wanting you to love them like unconditionally, which you already do, but they can't see it. So just breathe. Just like Dr. Yama said, breathe. Give it a second.
Y'all, patient, whatever they call it, y'all about to be full. Can I comment on that, Dr. Kanji? And we have to have you all back. We just have to. We have to have all four of you.
We'd love to be back.
This was so incredibly good. There's so many different things I want to be able to talk about and touch on. But this is the family hour. We about to come up on an hour. But I want to comment on what you just said, Dr. Kanji, because and I want people in the audience to hear me very carefully. Parents, there's a principle called differentiation. Okay. And differentiation is knowing where you end and where someone else begins. What Dr. Kanji said is so incredibly important about not reacting to your child. A lot of times we react to things our kids say because we don't even know it. But deep down in our subconscious, we feel like our kids are an extension of us. And so our kids make us reactive to certain things because when our kids come to us and say things, or when our kids demonstrate certain behaviors, we become reactive because we look at our kids as a reflection of who we are. And I think it's really important for you to understand that you are not your child. Your child is not you. You are your child's parent. And so you can be differentiated from whatever your child brings to you to love your child through anything. Okay? Through anything. So we ought to be the safest place in the world our child knows. That's what we ought to be. I had to comment on that because what you said is so So important. Okay. All right. I know what I just said about the family hour, but we're going to go into a little bit of overtime because I got one more question. One more question. Y'all hang out with me a little bit longer because this is the last question. Okay. When the game gets good and it gets tired and it goes into overtime, nobody gets mad. One more question. All right. Everybody going to answer this question. You all are so marvelous at what you do. What made you go into this field? What made you want to become a pediatrician? I just want to hear a little bit of that so that next time we come back together, we could just dive right into it. We don't have to touch on that, that way, this will be the cliffhanger for the next episode. That's what this will be. What made you decide to be a pediatrician? You all are brilliant. You could have been anything, right? What made you decide to be a pediatrician? I want to hear. Maybe let's just go counterclockwise on the screen. So Dr. Yamas, Dr. Claire, Dr. Kanji, Dr. West. Why don't you share with us just real quick, what made you decide to be a pediatrician?
I knew that I always wanted to be a doctor forever. I was one of those. I knew since I was little, I wanted to be a doctor. But in short, when I was in a CPR certification class, and I passed the class, got my certification in the mail, and I was hanging out with some friends. And that exact weekend, I was hanging out with some friends. My friend had needed CPR, and I was there. I was like, oh my goodness, this is my moment. And so I gave CPR. The ambulance came. She was okay. But it was one of those moments that I knew, and I took it as a sign from God that I was like, this is what I was meant to do. I was like, it was the weekend I got my CPR certification. This was the weekend that I was just so happened to be with my friend when she needed CPR, and I helped resuscitate her. And I took it as a sign from God. I was like, this is what I'm meant for. And so I knew from then I was destined to be in medicine.
Oh, Lord.
That's such a good story. I feel like there's some similarities there. I started out by chance. I used to be an EMT, so I would work on ambulance, driving it and being in the back. And that was sort of something I fell into because I needed a job. I had certification. I was trying to be, a writer back in the day, and I just needed to do something. And just with time, I got to meet so many people and get involved in so many people's lives. And the more I saw and the more I did, the more I started to think, I want to do this more. I want to get more involved. I want to be able to not just be the person that picks someone up from when they're having something really bad happen to them, but also the person that helps them avoid getting to that situation in the first place. I didn't think I wanted to work with kids, I'll be honest with you. I've got a kind of a scary face, I think. So I never was anyone's babysitter or anything like that. But when I was starting to go through medical school and all of that training, I realized that the people I liked talking to the most were the kids. They're funny, they're so open, they're so thankful, they're just genuine people. And it's such a uplifting kind of group of people to work with and help out that I realized that was going to be the thing for me.
I couldn't imagine doing absolutely anything else. I mean, anytime anybody asks me like why I'm doing what I want to do, I'm like, why not? This is like the best job ever. Nobody ever really pushed me to become a doctor, and I never had like an aha moment or whatever, but my mom was a nurse, so I kind of knew medicine was good, and it was good to take care of people. But there is something so humbling to take care of people in their most vulnerable moments. And of course, I love children. They're so fun, and I love hanging out with them, and I love taking care of them. They're full of potential, and I just want them to do everything that they want to do in the world. But man, when I take care of kids, but then also take care of their parents, kind of in that situation, I mean, I've never seen people so vulnerable and so scared, and to be able to be with them and hold their hand and say, I'm going to take care of the person, the living thing in this world that you care about more than anything, more than yourself. I mean, what a privilege. And to be able to do that every single day, oh my gosh, like if I get ever reborn again, I would do it again. It's such an honor, and that's the life I just want to live.
Man, I love all these responses. I'm learning things new about my colleagues. But for me, so I consider myself one of those people. I'm a kid at heart. I love being silly. I love cracking jokes. I love playing games. And so just knowing I wanted to be a doctor, as far as why pediatrics in specific, I feel like I definitely have loved the relatability in terms of being able to coach a child, or a family, should I say, from the time a baby is born all the way up till they're in college. I love the teenagers, the preteens, the newborns. Like, there's such a spectrum. And I think that there are a lot of elements that bring joy out of just knowing that you can have an impact and influence the habits that these kids start at a very young age that can last into a lifetime. I love being able to counsel families and their kids. And that's specifically why pediatrics is where I felt my best fit was, because I felt it feels more impactful in that sense of helping someone develop good habits. Everything that we've talked about tonight, just being able to get through the day to day of, for teenagers, their mental health, for picky eaters, or how we're talking about all these changes in school and education. I think that is very impactful as doctors, being able to help kids develop habits up until they're grown. And then also, kids are our future. So I'm personally interested in ICU medicine. So I also like that element of dealing with the sick kids, because that is where, families, is very scary. And I think that that's something that really draws me to being able to care for people in those really scary times, especially when it comes to kids when they get sick.
I have been so honored and humbled to share this space with you all. I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like this is a sacred moment. I mean, this is just, there's something real special about this time. I mean, so I said it before, I'll say it again. We're having you back. That's all there is to it. We'll figure out some reasons. We'll figure out some questions. This was an amazing show. Dr. West, Dr. Kanji, Dr. Yamas, Dr. Claire, thank you so much for your time, for taking your time out to share with us, for your passion, for your excellence, and for choosing to serve in this way. We really appreciate you. We look forward to our next conversation. We're so grateful for you, and Salem family and friends, I am so grateful for all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. I'm blown away. This was an incredible, I know I say that after every family hour. God has just favored the family hour. God is good to Salem Baptist Church of Chicago. We're so grateful for what he has blessed us to hear, and how he has given us so many opportunities to find hope in the midst of this pandemic. I want to remind you that we'll be right back on all of our platforms for Wednesday night Bible class, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be back for service on Sunday. And we will be right here Sunday evening for the family hour, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Please, 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 please go back, watch this again, share this with everybody that you know who has a child. Let everything that was shared in this episode be a blessing to as many people as you know. Father, we thank you for this hour, this time that we've had to share. Thank you for these amazing leaders, these doctors, who you've clearly blessed and given great gifts and favor to care for our kids. We pray that you would bless them, that you would continue to strengthen them, that you would meet every need in their lives. Lord, we need more doctors like them who care about the work that they do, who care about the people that they serve. We pray that you would continue to have them be encouraged, to give them long and fruitful careers. God, thank you for the Family Hour. May this broadcast continue to give hope to parents, to families, to kids everywhere, so that we can restore hope by connecting people to God and to each other. We love you, Lord. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. God bless.